Find that HAFA is not the only short sale program. All the banks have their own short sale programs.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll be inspired by HAFA to identify the net proceeds that they require to approve the short sale up front for their other short sales. And so the advantage of the HAFA structure will spill over, we can hope, into all short sales because, and then you can do the junior lien holder incentive can be higher than the cap in HAFA. The commission can be higher. I mean, if that's what the first mortgage holder is willing to do, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, guys, it's not all. We have to acknowledge the fact that when the banks do something to make the process better, the servicers do something to make the process better. That's an example that Julie's talking about. They're actually raising the commission in some cases to get some of these properties sold. So let's get back to the specifics with regards to the paperwork, Jeff. So a HAFA short sale has an SSA, which is essentially a short sale agreement. And
right.
According to the HAFA guidelines, if I understand this correctly, the initial listing agreement is 4 months. Is that correct?
I never thought of it as being in the listing agreement, but of course it is in the listing agreement too. But the short sale agreement gives the homeowner and the broker an initial 4-month period to sell the property. Can be extended. That's right. So that's 4 months. So the example I use is, if you do have a completely inactive market, there are no buyers, there's no lookers, there's no sales, there's nothing going on, and the real estate agent, not a realtor I'm sure, is really not doing much, then maybe they're not going to extend the 4-month period. But if you've got a market that's starting to heat up, there's been a lot of some offers, they're not quite high enough, but the prices are trending up, you go in and you make your case to the servicer, look, I can sell this thing, I need 3 more months, or I need however much more. The program allows that extension for a total of 1 year, including the initial 4 months.
Okay, so Harris Real Estate University, CDPDs, all the rest of you out there, wake up to the fact that for the foreseeable future, short sales are going to be one of the best types of listings to have because for a lot of reasons, the buyers, the investors are going to be looking for them. As I know in the past, starting really in 2007 when short sales started to become so dominant in the country, agents, buyers, sellers, everyone wanted to avoid them. But now just the opposite is going to happen because of this HAFA program. Now, be clear on this. You should be seeking to help as many underwater homeowners as possible create a graceful exit. List their homes via short sale. Use this information. I don't care if you have 1 listing or 100 listings. You should be thinking to yourself right now about all the opportunity there is in your marketplace right now. And just to put this in perspective, and this was kind of a surprising number for those of you who like numbers, the home sales for January of 2010 came out nationwide. Something like 29% of all sales in the country were distressed. They're short sales or REOs. I'm seeing no reason to believe that trend is going to reverse. Jeff, do you?
Not in the immediate future.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some thought that the REO universe is going to get much larger because they've been processing people for HAMPs, and some of them are, clearly now there's going to be a certain number that don't qualify, and they're going to move on to HAFA, and if that doesn't work, and Deed in lieu doesn't work, then they're going to be going into REO. So both of those categories should continue to grow.
And to Jeff's point, we talked about this on the blog, timandjulieharris.com, that some lenders are anticipating as much as a 600% increase, 600% increase in REO inventory towards the end of this year into 2011. So you better believe that these lenders are going to be anxious to get as many of these homes sold via the HAFA program to avoid all the costs that they have associated with doing an REO. All right, so now, let's get into the more specifics. An interesting aspect of HAFA, the servicer has to state so actually I'm getting a little out of track here. So how long does the servicer have to approve or disapprove the RAS?
And let's just remind people what a RAS is. That's when you get your executed sales contract signed by the buyer and the seller. You send it in with a request for approval of short sale. On paper, the servicer has 10 days to approve. Now, I know that's an unbelievable number, but at least it gives you something to complain about. Let's say they do it to 15 or 20 days or 30 days. You can say, look, it was due in 10 days. We met your net proceeds. All the closing costs are approvable. The buyer has promised not to flip it for 90 days. All those various rules, and it's really complicated, but you can go to that servicer and say, time to act. Let's get this job done.
So they have 10 days, and of course,
10 days, but yeah.
Yeah, well, as Jeff is alluding, let's just deal with reality here.
Yeah.
Will the lenders abide by the 10 days? Not necessarily. And if we see that this is 30 days from now, if we see this is a chronic violation with different servicers, remember, as Jeff said, a servicer is essentially the bank, you've got to let the National Association of Realtors know so they can take it directly to Treasury and say, hey, guys, this is a guideline. These banks agreed to this guideline, and they're not following it. It's your job as an agent to put your association to work for you. So here's another interesting aspect. Once let's say the RAS has been approved, request to approve short sale is RAS again. The closing time, how long?
Yeah, at least 45 days. You can close sooner if you want, but they cannot rush you any quicker than 45 days.
Okay. Now, another interesting aspect of HAFA, which is really great for those of us who have been in the short sale space for a long period of time, is if the RAS isn't approved, in other words, if the bank says, no, we don't want the contract, they actually have to state the reasons why, correct?
That's right. And that's pretty unusual, I think,
absolutely.
in the current market, yeah.
Well, the typical reply is basically, well, we're not going to approve it, and, then the number came in too high or too low. What would be some of the reasons why a RAS would be rejected?
Well, the first most important one is that the number's not high enough. And by the way, let's say that they say to approve this we need a net proceeds of $200,000, and your best offer after closing costs and commission gives them $190,000. Doesn't mean you have to give up. I would go in and say, look, we've marketed this. Here's the comparative market analysis. Here's the recent sales. Here is everything. $190,000 is really a good deal. This is the best you're going to get, and it's going to save you money compared to a foreclosure. Try to get them to do it. They can say yes, they can say no, but at least you have that opportunity. There are lots of other conditions, and for all these terms and conditions, by the way, we have a short sales page, realtor.org/short sales, all one word with an S at the end. And you can say, I did a video, we've got some frequently asked questions, a brochure, and a link to the forms themselves. So you'll be able to really dig into it and get the details. But let's say you forgot to assign the to submit the addenda to the sales contract. Well, that's grounds for disapproval. What if the mortgage insurer didn't approve, or one of the second liens didn't release the lien? Well, that's grounds for disapproval. All the conditions of the program have to be met, or else the servicer can disapprove it.
Again, guys, a lot of the things he's talking about are the same reasons that normal short sale offers don't get approved. Prior to HAFA, if you didn't submit a complete package, if you didn't submit an executed contract, all the other things that are required, it's the same thing. Hopefully, all the Harris Real Estate University students have been doing it correctly for long enough that what you're going to see is HAFA actually requires less paperwork, not more. And something else I'm going to suggest to all of you, one of the stumbling blocks, especially for those of you who have not been earned your CDPD, often a stumbling block, as Jeff said out of the gates, is basically the number, the price on the contract not being in alignment with what the lender thinks the property is worth based on their BPO. So when that happens, you've got to confront the lender about that and say, listen, if the BPO that they have, the number that they have in mind, is not a true reflection on the market, you're going to have to put on your realtor negotiating hat. Hopefully all of you remember what that is, and actually convince the lender to order another BPO. And oftentimes, well, let me scratch that, every time when you submit your short sale offer, your package, send them a BPO. I'm not saying they'll use it. They certainly won't replace your BPO with the one that they order, but that will oftentimes be used in consideration, especially if the numbers are different. Again, guys, this goes into the whole negotiating aspect that all of you hopefully are going to be very comfortable with regards to short sales. So, Jeff, we have an absolute ton of questions. Is there anything that you want to mention or talk about before I get to some of these questions before we jump in?
No, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
I mean,
right.
There's some other points. I mean, and if you want to remind me of something you think would fit here, feel free.
Well, we didn't go over in a large bit of detail over the specifics of the package and the other aspects of the paperwork. If there's anything that I skipped over that you think that you want to bring out, please do. Well,
the main thing is I think that the reality is this is not enough for you to know enough how to do to know how to do a HAFA short sale. There's going to be lots and lots of detail. You're going to just have to get into the forms. One important reason is that the real estate broker is going to have to sign the short sale agreement. The real estate broker is not